So how do you actually build a system? This is kind of the general flow. So you define your design principles, conduct a UI audit, create your checklist, and define your workflows. So let's kind of examine what all of these mean. Design principles are really the grounding values that drive the creation of your products. And they really encompass the question, like, what do you want your users to feel when they use your product? And this is going to drive the creation of your components. So if someone comes with a proposition for a new component and it doesn't fit with your design principles, say, you know, this isn't going to work. It's not going to work with our system. So this is a design principle from Atlassian, and theirs is bold, optimistic, and practical. So that's the first step. Define your design principles. What do you want your users to feel when they use your application? So most of us are probably working on legacy applications that already exist. You're probably not building a design system in a silo from scratch. And what that means is your UI is probably comprised of a lot of different culminations of components. And so the next step is a UI audit. So you need to go through your UI, through your products, take screenshots of every component in every single state that exists and throw it into a common place, whether that's a sketch file, a Figma file, a Google Drive, something or other. And then you group them by functionality. We're not going to group them by visual appearance because visual appearance can kind of change and evolve over time, but the functionality, the underlying functionality is going to be the same. So once we conduct our UI audit, we actually have to prioritize. We're going to have a lot of components. How do we actually pick and choose what we're going to work on first, especially if we don't have a dedicated design team or if we don't have that many team members? So we need to figure out how to prioritize them. We want to focus on the things that are going to have the highest impact and be easily achievable. So some of the questions you're going to want to ask yourself, and I like to put these into a survey, an online survey that you can give to product management, to design and engineering, and have all of them take these surveys, because integrating a new component to your system does not just impact design. It doesn't just impact engineering. It's going to impact all of them. So you need to kind of make sure that all three areas are really covered. And these are some of the questions you might want to ask. Does this request or does this component embody our design principles? Is this going to require a lot of design or development effort? Does this come with a high risk to the success of our product? Is it going to break things potentially? Does this coincide with our product roadmap? Is this something that we can actually fit into our current workflow? Is this going to actually improve the UX of our products? Is this going to make our users' lives better? Are we confident in this decision, or is it going to have to be revisited in the near future? And is this technically feasible? If we can't build it, we shouldn't even be wasting time on it. So we can kind of take these statements, or take these questions and turn them into impact statements. And then we're going to evaluate them on some metrics. So we've got two different kinds of metrics. We have adoption metrics that indicate this component should be prioritized. This is a great component to integrate. And we have opposition metrics. So these are ones that are saying, well, you might want to actually not focus on this right now. It has a lower priority. And we're going to examine these from impact, identity, and confidence, and maintenance, risk, and effort. Those are kind of the metric areas. This is a lot. This is the big slide, but this is essentially telling you how you can calculate the priority of a component and actually plot this on a graph. And why this is great is you're going to have a lot of stakeholders. People are going to be watching your system, and oftentimes this is twofold. One is you will get people who question your decisions and want to know why you've prioritized component A over B, and this gives you a mathematical equation to actually tell them this is why. This was super risky to do. This is going to take a long time to build, so it's less of a priority than a different component. So essentially, you're going to create these impact statements. You're going to have your designers, your engineers, your product managers all take a survey that kind of evaluates these metrics. And you're going to get an adopter score and an opposer score. So what's the priority? Should it be a high priority? Should it be a low priority? And we're just basically going to average these together across all people who've taken this. And we're going to get an XY value out of this. And we can plot that on a graph. It's going to be a 4-quadrant graph. So in the top right, we've got priority 1. This means it's a strong adopter and it's a weak opposer. And these are wins, right? If something is going to be really impactful on unifying our UIs or our products, and it's really not very risky, it's not going to require a lot of maintenance. Yeah, let's focus on that. That's great. Priority 2 in the bottom right, it's a strong adopter, but it's also a strong opposer. So maybe it's going to require a lot of maintenance. In that case, maybe try to mitigate that opposition. What the nice thing about this is you can point to exactly the opposition metric that's the issue. Like you can say, oh, maintenance is going to be a huge issue, or I don't remember what my other metrics were, but you can point to the exact metric that is the problem and maybe try to do something to fix that and get it up into the top right quadrant. Priority 3 are weak adopters, weak opposers. So you're going to want to focus on the other components before starting these. And then parking lot, I don't like to say throw them out because no idea is a bad idea. But these are kind of things that aren't going to give you a lot of benefit, but they have a lot of risk associated or maintenance associated and should be kind of just put off to the side until you need something else to work on. So let's take a little example. So buttons, let's say we go through this whole process. We have our designers, our engineers, our product managers all take this survey, and let's say we get an average score of 4 out of 5 points. It'll put it up in this upper right quadrant, priority 1. So buttons are going to have a high impact. They're really going to unify our products, and they're going to help instill a sense of brand identity. They do, however, require a lot of maintenance and effort. They might have to be revisited a couple times in terms of styling and things like that, but they're going to have a good impact. So those would maybe be priority 1. And let's take something like an accordion. You're probably not going to be using accordions throughout your products like too often, right? Buttons are definitely going to be used a lot more, and accordions are complex. They're not a native HTML element or a semantic element that you can just instantiate and it works. There's something that you have to build. You have to add accessibility concerns with the way ARIA to make sure it's accessible and things like that. So it would be kind of a low adopter, and we shouldn't focus on that as much as buttons or other form elements, for example. So this is kind of how you can mathematically graph the priority of your components and give that to stakeholders and be like, hey, here's our priority list and this is why.